Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to the Meat and Potato Show, conservative talk and awesome rock. And we are filming here at our Ambush Studios here in Worcester, Massachusetts. And it's my pleasure to welcome, as we enter into the 2016 election season, many more of the great guests that we're going to have throughout this election year. I met this man some time ago through social media. He ended up coming to one of our Tea Party events about a month ago. Gave a great talk. He was hoping actually, I remember this, he was kind of hoping to have kind of a face-to-face with our other guest, Professor Cunningham, but as my good friend will alliterate as we get into the interview, the man just put on his jacket and walked out the door, and my guest goes on and on to say, well, I was kind of hoping to have a debate. It was great. It was great. Anyway, it's all on the film. It's all on the YouTube channel. Political consultant, guest of tonight's show, John LaRosa. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Great, man. Great.
Appreciate it.
So, yeah, last month, you were there.
I
Cunningham, you saw it. He's like putting on his coat, taking the last question.
I have to tell you, when you guys invited me to come out and said there was going to be a liberal professor there, I couldn't get there fast enough because I said, this is going to be on film.
Right.
And I'm going to destroy him. It's going to be like Milton Friedman talking to Phil Donahue.
Exactly.
Everyone, I've been posting that link for years, but it keeps circulating.
Sure.
You know, the whole discussion about greed. Friedman said, "Well, I didn't even trust you to do that," you know, and he just destroyed him with a smile. And I was hoping to do the same thing. So the professor gave a spiel, which was kind of dry, talking about polling and various.
I thought it was dry too. Very facts and figures type of talk.
He did not want to start a fight at that meeting. I think he came in.
He was trying to keep it as clean and green as possible.
Exactly.
Right,
So the one question I got to him, I got one question. He ran out the door
right,
after
and
he
again,
answered.
it's on the film. It's on the YouTube.
Yeah, check it out. The one question I said, since the head of the DNC and the presumptive front runner, even though she's losing, she's winning delegates because they're getting redistributed to her from Bernie, even though he beats her 61-39, she gets all his delegates.
Wait till he talks about that.
Super delegates. Hillary and Debbie Wasserman Schultz couldn't explain the difference between socialism and being a Democrat. What's the difference between a socialist and a Democrat? And he went, well, you know, roads, bridges, and schools and stuff.
All built by socialism. Okay,
That's socialism. I'm like, so thank you for confirming that there is no difference between the modern Democrat and the modern liberal Democrat, because honestly, my parents are lifelong Democrats. Lifelong Democrats.
I was raised the same way. Kennedy, my mother actually worked on John's campaign.
They are not the ideological Democrats of today, the quote-unquote progressives who are socialists, and they're finally admitting it because they have a candidate winning New Hampshire who is a socialist. He throws the word Democratic in front of it, but
yes.
He's a socialist. He's always been a socialist, will always be a socialist, and Hillary's stumbling over herself saying, "I'll give away more stuff."
Do you think the reason why have you noticed that, you and I are old enough to remember, it used to be the Democrat Party, now it's the Democratic Party.
Actually,
what's going on with the name change?
I'm only,
is
just
that
for the record, I'm only 22. This politics ages people very badly. But go ahead, you were saying?
So yeah, they go from being the Democrat Party, which you and I grew up to name them as, they're the Democratic Party. My question is that kind of part of the game plan of the progressives and the liberals to always constantly change the names, change the labels, they protect the guilty?
Exactly. When global warming was proven
Climate change.
Not to be, it's not warming.
Never mind acid rain, remember that in the 70s? I remember that.
And CFCs, remember chlorofluorocarbons were killing the ozone layer?
Destroying the ozone layer, right.
But, when global warming had a pause, it's still true, of course, but it had a pause.
We have no heat in the studio, so it's kind of cold here.
That's right.
So, there we go.
And I'm glad we're not doing this naked. That's all I can say. George Costanza reference something. But,
right.
I was in the garage, Jerry. I was in the garage.
Told you this would be a great interview, guys.
Yeah, we're not going to get too serious.
No.
Okay. So, they try to own the language, and exactly what the professor did was kind of make this, what are you guys all worked up about comment by saying, well, roads and bridges are socialist, and public schools and police and fire. They always go to roads and bridges. Do you know
Police and
how
fire.
many gazillions of dollars? Just another cup of coffee could build this road. All you need to do is give up a little bit more. What did they do with the money they already took? They never say that. But it's geez, lighten up. So we don't lose our liberty all at once. We gradually give it away.
Yeah, pennies at a time.
And it's not just pennies. It's giving the power to make those decisions. I mean, government's all about prioritizing things, which is why I can get along with Democrats like my parents, because they're not about the hardcore ideology. Really, one of the only reasons my mother got involved in politics, she was a Democratic treasurer for her ward committee for 30 some odd years. Half that committee votes Republican. I kid you not. They whisper it to me, though.
Let's talk about your job. The official title on your business card, political consultant. And you were talking earlier off the mic, and you were talking about working on some national campaigns. Please talk to my audience about that. What is it that you're working on? Tell us about you.
I am John LaRosa. I am follically challenged, and I try to entertain the internet when I'm not working.
You'll be okay, John.
I'll be. It's okay. I am the creator of the Bald is Beautiful hashtag as well. But go back many years. Brad Morrison and I co-founded Four-Tier Strategies many years ago.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I was doing some political consulting. I worked with Sean Bilott when he ran against Barney Frank. And I'd like to say we expedited his retirement because we tormented him. Took it in a D plus a million district, took it down. Sean ended up losing by about 11%. Newton, Brookline,
Well, those are Barney Frank holdouts.
When you
know about the gerrymandering, I always have a hard time saying it, but you know what I'm saying, the gerrymandering of that whole district. There's like this weird thing where he has Taunton and the Raynham area down there, and then there's like this weird corridor, and then it opens up like a mushroom cloud, and that whole Newton, Norwood, Natick.
I always said I wish they traded Newton and Brookline to Cambridge, and then traded a bunch of them to Havana for a box of stogies and a shortstop to be named later, because it's just
in
a
2010,
very difficult place.
I had the great pleasure of I asked not only Barney Frank, Belot, and somebody else in 2010. Who else was going against him in 2000? Was it Belot? There was somebody else. I can't
there was
remember.
A primary on the
but
Republican
the person
side.
I'm talking about was
Earl Shawley ran in the primary.
Rachel Brown from the LaRouche Democrats.
Oh, yes.
She was actually, and people say to me on the show all the time, it's like, get some Democrats on the show. I try to get Democrats on the show. The only ones who answer my emails are the LaRouche people. How crazy is that the only Democrats are the LaRouche people? We had Rachel Brown on like 3 or 4 times on the meeting today. This was in 2010. And she hammered at Barney Frank. It was unbelievable. I remember the video that was out where she was asked, and Barney Frank does that thing, why do I have to answer? I don't have to answer your question.
On what planet do you live?
He cooked his own goose on that. And so when I saw that, I was like, I've got to get hold of this lady, get her on the show.
Frankly, I would prefer to talk to a dining room table than you.
I remember that.
Terrific.
But that's how they do this, though. They cook their own goose. There's a certain degree where they cook their own goose and they know that they're going to die, like the Howard Dean screaming and yelling, Barney Frank with I'd rather talk to a dining room table. But there's many of them who just don't give a damn what they say or what they do because they know they've got the money, the backing, and the useful idiots, the Democrat voters, who are just going to back their plate no matter what they say.
Did you bleep yourself? Can you bleep yourself?
I just kind of...
Okay, that's low-tech bleeping.
It's low-tech bleeping.
I just want to know if I can go...
The video does have an explicit marker on it, so when you do it, it's got a little red thing up in the corner.
So this is like late-night cable. We can say whatever we want, right? Excellent. It's a problem when you have a D plus a million district, and then you have a contested primary on the Republican side here in Massachusetts anyway, and then you only have from September to November to run one-on-one against the Democratic nominee.
Right.
So, you know, in 2010, Sean and Earl Shawley beat each other up there for a while in a primary, and Sean had a month, a couple months to get, and nobody was giving any money to the district because they thought it was unwinnable. So the national GOP wasn't helping. They're not, raise X amount, make sure, show us you're viable, and maybe we'll help you. And by the way, you have to support our speaker if you're running for Congress, or else you're getting nothing. That happens all over the place. And I have specific examples all over the country on that. But then you get no real support other than your grassroots supporters that are holding signs and making phone calls and all that.
We did that on the show. We interviewed many candidates where that's what they said all the time. That's when I first discovered what the is going on with the GOP. That it's like, why are you supporting these Tea Party grassroots guys? And keep going. We'll segue into that.
Well, then it comes to a one-on-one race, and then we start hammering Barney. Of course, it helped with Barney because Barney would say something ridiculous every day, and it would get national news. So we did get Sean up to Fox News. We did get, the national bloggers as part of what we do is kind of, we've networked with the national bloggers for years. In fact, I've got many of them drunk at CPAC over the years. But they know that if we give them a story, it's not just do us a favor. We know that they're going to get hits, and we will actually make the hits happen online. So they're more likely to cover our candidates than there are someone else who just says, "Hey, please do something with this." So when Barney had a purple dinosaur show up at one of his events, and he was tongue-tied, one of the only times he was speechless, that got covered. It was just a cute thing, but it got covered. But we also had people, low and mid-level bloggers, writing about the race, and then it gradually funneled up to the slightly higher level bloggers. And one day I got a call from Sean saying, I went to bed last night, like midnight, and I had X amount, and I had like $50,000 more in my account this morning. What happened?
Yeah.
And I said, well, Michelle Malkin endorsed you and was nice enough to put the donate link. And he's like, who is she? And because he was busy campaigning, he's not a watcher of the blogosphere.
Yeah.
I mean,
and this was back when Michelle Malkin was still.
She had some juice there, and everyone hit the donate link because they just said not Barney. Those days are kind of over because one of the problems is the presidential race is sucking all the wind out of the show.
Right.
So right now we had John Boehner's primary opponent is one of our clients. Boehner drops out of the race. Mm-hmm. We had a one-on-one race set up with Boehner. I'm like, oh, this is sweet. And we brought in Eric Cantor's campaign manager. Dave Bratt's campaign manager who took out Eric Cantor, brought him onto the team. And we were doing the digital strategy, social media, and general consulting for this campaign. And we were getting calls saying, hey, this time we're going to support you, this time we're going to help, this time we're going to get involved, this time we're going to send armies of people to Ohio's 8th district. Yeah. And then Boehner dropped out. Now, mysteriously, 15 people have suddenly been inspired to represent that district. 15 people, so that's good in a way for our candidate because he had a head start and he may actually win this race.
Yes.
He doesn't have to raise $1 billion to do it. It's bad because nobody's talking about the race because nobody cares anymore because Boehner left.
Boehner's left. The presidential campaign sucking all the wind, like you said. Interesting.
So that's one of our campaigns. He's still in it, doing really well. J.D. Winteregg is the client, jdwinteregg.com. We built the website, so go check it out. But we also have...
show.
He can call in.
Sure,
I'm sure he'd be happy to call in.
I'd love to have him call in.
And then Matt Lynch, who's running in Ohio 14.
Matt Lynch was on my show a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, got an impact on. I like to revisit them as the season goes along, just to see how they do. Even if they drop out, something happens, I like to see them after the fact.
Matt Lynch could be a huge success story because he was way down at the beginning.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've seen any.
His numbers are he's like the guy coming up from the rear, right? Exactly.
Well, he's actually in one poll. He's actually ahead now.
Good.
But the incumbent has an F rating on every single conservative scorecard. And he just did basically what Boehner told him to do and voted the way he was told to vote by the Chamber of Commerce and all that. And it just blows my mind when people say, oh, these challengers, they're wacko birds, they're extreme. I would say they'd be extreme if they were trying to take down guys or women with A's and B's on all conservative scorecards. Maybe it's like, why are you doing that? There's other people to run against. This guy has an F on every scorecard.
D- an F, right, exactly.
So that's Ohio 14 on that. So that's what we're kind of busy with that, but we have a ton of other stuff we're doing, web design stuff, little bits and pieces of campaigns, because we can do any aspect of a campaign, just fill in where needed. We don't have to run the whole show.
Certainly. One of the things I did for the past several cycles is interview a lot of different candidates on the grassroots level. I touched upon this a moment ago, that when these grassroots people are running, there isn't any real support from the establishment, and you would talk a little bit about that. I want you to expand a little bit on that. The reason why I asked the question is I've seen this time and time again. I've interviewed a lot of different candidates, not only nationwide, but here in the local area. In 14, I decided to kind of change my game plan a little and concentrate on what was going on here on the local level. Smack dab into that. They're raising money on their own. They're not getting any support from Hughes, the main GOP establishment here in Massachusetts. And if you know anything about Mara, their breakup that went on here, everything's fractionalized. What the hell is going on, and why is that?
This is really no different than any place, and I tried to punt on the Massachusetts stuff, but all across the country.
I know it's all across. Yeah. Why? Why is that happening?
Well, because there are people that have a vested interest in staying in power.
And it was the establishment, sure. Okay.
Right. So whether you call them establishment or quote unquote rhino or quote unquote squish.
Right.
Not all incumbents are bad. We had Louis Gohmert as a client.
I know.
And Louis,
but you understand what I'm
terrific.
saying. Even some GOP incumbents, like you said, they've got a D rating or an F rating. That's like,
I'd say, why don't we go after all the people, just from our perspective, the U.S. House and Senate incumbents who have Ds and Fs. Right. Now, that can't be viewed as extreme, can it? Well, it is, because you're helping that crazy wacko bird.
But my original question, why does the establishment GOP not look at these outsider people and say, you know what, I know it's an outsider, it's a shot in the dark, but he or she is gaining a lot of popularity, they've got a great message, let's quite literally try to knock this out of the park and support this person.
Well, I think in some cases these people are more conservative on social issues than they feel comfortable with.
I see what you're saying.
And they in their mind have a brand that they consider electable. And I've got all sorts of hand quotes here.
Yeah,
and
I know where you're going. You're right.
Electability is, but one of the things I said in my speech the other day is, if you stand for nothing but electability, nobody's going to get on the couch get off the couch on election day. Nobody knew. They always talk about growing the tent. Nobody knew is going to be inspired to go out and vote if they think the two candidates, D and R, are very similar.
Sure.
They do the Hillary, what difference at this point does it make? And they stay home. Mm-hmm. And then the folks that were holding the signs and they're real hardcore activists and they really want change for the better, they get left out in the cold, or they get state committee candidates running against their state committee candidate. And, there's lots of things that happen, but that happens everywhere. It's not just a Massachusetts thing. And I know a lot of the activists get totally frustrated, but the way to get your point across is to go win, and win a lot. And we can help people win. We can give them at least the tools that they need to win, but they have to do one thing. You got to raise some money. Because I am a proud capitalist. I give a lot of
campaigns. They run on money. They don't run on hopes and dreams.
I give a lot of free advice. So one of the bits of free advice I give, and I repost it periodically on Facebook. I wrote a whole bunch of blog posts on 10 tips before you run for office of any kind. Here are 10 things to think about. But after your spouse, the most important sell for a prospective candidate is a finance director. Someone who will commit not only to max out or give a substantial amount of money, but recruit 10, 15, 20, 100 other people to serve on the committee and have them recruit 10, 15 people each.
To each get money into.
And then you have something
right.
to start with, because if you can't even pay for a boosted Facebook post, right? You know, Facebook's all
sure, right.
pay
They boost them, right? Sure.
pay to play. Nobody's going to see your post if you just put it up there. It's not like 2010. It's not like 2008. It's very different. And all the things Facebook has been tweaking are designed to bring more money into Facebook. People are
And
still
that's
doing the old
understandable.
school stuff.
I understand that, sure.
But
They're
that's
a
just
company.
one example. If you could, I had a client who I won't name, who I posted all this great witty content, and I'd go and look at the insights, and it's seen by 23 people, 2 shares. I'm like, but that was brilliant. That was one of my better ones. And I knew that, and then I boosted something that was so-so, and it got thousands of views. And then that's just one little piece of what we
boosting
do.
is worth it.
The targeting
It's
and
actually
boosting.
relatively cheap. Isn't it like $10 or $20?
It's extremely cheap, and part of what Brad does most of the tech stuff
Right.
for the company, and most of the digital, the flighting of ads on Facebook, and the web and Google ads.
Yeah.
All the stuff that, someone reads a Breitbart link, and then all of a sudden they're here and they're seeing something about a candidate here. Geez, I wonder how that happened. There are ways to target and identify people. There are also ways to target and identify people by, interest. So if, for example, a client of ours is a big Second Amendment supporter and wants to do an email, we can actually identify people who talk about the Second Amendment a lot and make sure they get the email in their district by zip code. So we could send a message to one side of
How long have you
Worcester.
been doing it? How long have you
We've
been in
been,
this business?
well, I was doing it before 2010.
Right.
Before Brad and I got together, I did Sean's stuff. I was doing just more conservative blogging type stuff, and I was doing business related social media tips. I was blogging about social media 101 for business in 2007, 2006, but we went to the political side, and our first client as a company was Herman Cain. So there's a reason people connected to us, because I already knew, and Brad already knew what we were doing prior to running into Cain and prior to forming the company. But we try to bring business best practices into the political world. So what I've seen is a lot of people, they're active, they want change, they're mad about something, and then like, I'm running for Congress. It's like, wait, time out. There's lots of, would you say, okay, I feel like opening an ice cream shop if you didn't learn anything about running a restaurant or a business, right? So let's give them some of the tools and some of the background stuff. We've seen a ton of mistakes, we've made our share. Don't repeat them. We can help you just in the hour on the phone with people, just determining whether we want to do business with them. We give a lot of tips. We also do a full questionnaire for every candidate, so there's back and forth to help them think about the campaign the right way. And that, like that one thing, do you have a finance director? Well, no, I hope you guys could raise some money. I'm like, no, time out. You can't hire us without money. So you go get a finance director, you get a committee together, you start, getting your ducks in a row and getting commitments from people to the fund, even before you announce. And do not announce until you have the money to pay us to build a website, because that announcement date is going to be,
It's got to coincide, right?
really top level congressional candidates around the country, who I won't name, announced that they were running for office without a website. And I'm like, this is the day you should be getting donations of any day, because I don't know what your next big bit of news is, but this is big news if you're running and you have no website.
You're in front of a camera, you're announcing your candidacy. The very first thing the audience, the idiot on the couch drinking his beer, watching TV, is gonna pick up his phone and wait for that website to flash across the bottom of the screen so he can punch it into his smartphone and find out who you are.
Even
if
just,
you don't have one,
even just inviting people to come to the event that night.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them can't come, but if you have
There's
a
no
donor,
site, there's no,
if you can't
Right.
make it, please throw us $20. It'll buy some chips and dip. You know, I mean, to help us out in any way. And by the way, you can volunteer here too if you don't have any money. You can do this. You know, you can join our social media team. You can pre-order a campaign sign so we know how many to order. You can do all sorts of stuff.
Right.
And all those calls to action are built into our website. And we make it very easy to be for people to share them with their friends. So
it takes money. It all takes money.
so we don't charge a ton of money. We're not like the consultants you hear about in DC that just like get fat off Jeb's campaign and go through $58 million like that.
Just in a meeting.
Yeah, that might take 2 meetings with us.
One of the things I discovered in my interviews, I was interviewing Pat Barron, who was running for Congress here in Massachusetts against McGovern. One of the things he found out about, and he didn't know it, and I guess a lot of the candidates didn't know it at the time, maybe it's public knowledge now, is the pay-to-play system. That it's all well and good to have your ideas and your idealism, but once you get into office, I mean, you're immediately beholden to the party and raising money for the party, rather than actually trying to do the altruism that you want to do as an elected official. Is that something that you try to cover and tell your prospective clients, or prospective candidates, I should say?
Well,
warn them about that?
Fortunately, most of them have an idea of what's going on. But we want people that will actually tell the truth and push back against, this is our ideal candidate, like J.D. Winter-Egg, who ran against Boehner. He stood up. He lost his job the first time. He got fired mysteriously from his job. He got his headlights smashed in his car. He knew he was not welcome to challenge John Boehner, and they made it very clear and said, "Your career is over here in Ohio."
Old-fashioned baseball bat politics.
It's old-fashioned.
Really, that still exists.
It still exists. They made it clear to him, but he pressed forward. So we want someone, if he's going to get through all that, once he gets to Congress, hopefully he will just vote the right way. Unfortunately, sometimes the leadership only gives certain bills get through. And who schedules the votes? And who writes all the legislation? And who crafts it in a way where there's poison pills in something that should sound nice, like a balanced budget or something, some nice sounding bill, and it's got all sorts of stuff in it. So you have the option of voting for the nice sounding bill with the name balanced budget,
Yes.
but you just funded 90% of Obama's agenda.
Sure, exactly.
So all these omnibus bills are a joke, and they have really no choice but to vote no. And then they get, well, hey, your office is now in the janitor's closet, in Cleveland,
Right.
but you'll have to
And
commute
also
to
the press
DC.
and the media gets hold of it. It's like so-and-so senator voted no for the, I don't know, No Child Left Behind Act. Really? You're against children getting an education? No, I'm all for that. It's page 240 to page 560. It's all that other crap
Right.
that I'm not
And
voting for.
they have to be willing to expose the poison pills that are in the bill. And that's not good for their popularity in DC. And you have all these high-end
So
donors.
they do. They end up in the janitor's closet. Their next campaign, their next go-around, they get no funding. They get no
And they
backing.
get a primary opponent, and mysteriously shows up, a well-funded one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you an example. There was a guy out in Clint Didier. If that name sounds familiar?
No, it doesn't.
Clint played football in the NFL. He was a tight end on the Redskins. Clint was like a hardcore conservative. He was not going to be a vote for the speaker. He was running against, quote unquote, the establishment, and he had a clear path to victory in a congressional district with really no primary opponent, and the Dem was not going to win in that district. It was a totally R-plus district. Well, come to find out, Crossroads, which is Karl Rove's group,
Yes.
and other pro-establishment PACs, found a candidate, funded him, and he beat him. And it was like,
Last minute.
these are the same people that said, why would you challenge a safe R? Well, you just did. But that's what happens when people buck the establishment, they buck the powers that be. Now, what happens to vendors that do that? I don't think I'm going to get any referrals from the speaker's office.
Sure.
And probably I wouldn't want to work for those people anyway. But I really need some wins in pretty high profile races to show that the conservative challengers actually can win. They need to raise money, but we can do a lot with a little. So
what are we looking at though for wins? I mean, it seems like only once in a blue moon you hear about that outsider that somehow surprises and shakes it up in this district, I don't know, in Georgia or Tennessee or something, somewhere.
Right, I mean, I think...
But it seems like it's just like this candle in the wind, shot in the dark type person.
Well, you know, we're trying to replicate the whole Dave Bratt victory over Eric Hansen.
Right, exactly.
That, I don't want
That's
that.
kind of what I'm talking about.
I don't want that to be an outlier. You know, the people that are outright lying should be sent out. And that shouldn't be looked at as a negative. It should be looked at as a positive for the Republican Party when you think about it, because that will inspire more and more people to get involved, and people won't be so disillusioned. I mean, I see the Facebook anti-rhino, anti-establishment, you know, in Massachusetts, I see all the posts, and it's like, if you cannot prove that you are a threat to them who will win if they don't listen to you, they're not going to listen to you because they're going to keep their power. Well, you can squawk on Facebook all day. If they know you have no chance to win, what kind of clout do you have?
Yeah, this is absolutely true. When we talk about the difference between an arch conservative, somebody who can gain or garner a certain segment of the electorate, as opposed to somebody who, let's look at like a Ted Cruz, let's look at a Rubio, somebody who's more mainstream. These people might get the money and the backing, but the outsider might have the public support. My concern is that the Republican Party is eviscerating itself, eating its own, and we have a very scary chance of repeating 2012. What I mean by that is, in November, it was Romney against Obama, and just people stayed home because Romney wasn't enough of this, or he was too much of that. They had all placed their bets, and they all placed their eggs in one basket during the primaries. And because, well, that candidate didn't get in, I'm going to stay home. We end up losing the race. We have a very serious chance of repeating that again this year. Either Clinton or Sanders against whoever.
Right. Well, we had the same issue with McCain. So,
well,
you know.
That's the same thing. And then, right, McCain. And then everybody stayed, well, he's not enough, I'm not voting. So then we end up with the other side.
Right. I mean, there's two sides to that. You know, you have the people that say, well, to hell with them, we're going to send them a message, we're going to stay home, or I'm going to vote for a third party. I can't continue to hold my nose every election. They've got to know it coming in, so that they can't push that whole electability thing.
Let me tell you something, folks. Just do a little American history reading. I do a lot of it. I do a lot of it because I have to for the show, and I just do a lot of it because it's a hobby of mine. Holding your nose every election, this goes all the way back to just before the ink was dry on our Constitution. It goes all the way back. You cannot look at any election, especially presidential, where you didn't have to hold your nose at some point in time. But what we're seeing today, my question originally was, we have this, again, the people stay home. It's like, he's not enough of a conservative for me, or he's too much of a rhino, I'm not going to. And we end up with the same thing. Like you said, we have to hold our nose. Folks, you have to hold your nose. It's a big shit sandwich. We all got to take a bite, unfortunately. But my point is, I would vote for an empty pizza box over than the opposition, because at least we know what the opposition is.
I've done it every time. You know, I voted for McCain against Romney, and I did it. It wasn't pleasant. I didn't go out of my way and work really hard for their
Oh, were you
channel.
really seriously going to put your check in Obama's box? Seriously?
No, I wasn't. No, it was out of the question. And staying home was out of the question. But the time for the battle and the time to get your, you know, the preferred candidate in is now in the primary.
Right.
So get it done. Work for your candidate. Don't insult every supporters of every other candidate. Just push your candidate, do all the things you can do, make the phone calls, do everything you can to get your candidate of choice in. Once that happens, once the election's over or your candidate drops out,
Yeah,
don't
put your big boy pants on. Come on.
you know, but again, I absolutely understand
I do too,
the
sure.
feeling like, oh no, not again. This is not an electable person. You know, like I actually found one Jeb troll online. I couldn't believe it was the first and only one I found.
I haven't
Was
hit any
pushing the
myself.
electric,
I haven't hit any.
and this was just yesterday.
Okay.
And he's polling pretty low, and they were pushing the electability and the general thing, and that I'm like, okay. And I, instead of just being nasty or anything, because I wasn't pushing any candidate, but I just said, I said, you know, best of luck to your guy. I hope you'll come out in the general for whoever wins.
Do you think we're still too early to be saying, well, maybe more of these people should be dropping out of the race because their numbers are so low, i.e. a Jeb Bush? I mean, we already see what Christie and Fiorina have done. We've seen some of the others. Even people like Kasich. His numbers are low. I'm talking about people who are polling not just below 10%, let's knock that down, below 8 or 7%. Is it too early, or should we wait maybe after Super Tuesday or sometime later in the spring
I think
to actually say, dude, you gotta.
Well, I mean,
Get out of here.
people are going to say what they want to say online, or they're going to opine any way they want to opine. I mean, the process will work itself out. These candidates, the money will dry out for many of these candidates when they keep underperforming. So the process will, you know,
It'll
work.
winnow itself out.
It'll win. I mean, Carly was going nowhere. She knew it. Christie had to perform better in New Hampshire, especially after it. You know, he did fairly well in the debates. I thought he was actually a pretty good debater. You know, and then he comes up with such anemic numbers, and I said his donors, his high-end donors, who tend to call a lot of these shots, are going to be like, we can't keep writing checks. So I think that's gonna, and you don't have that massive grassroots. You know, like back when Ron Paul did all those money bombs to keep fueling a campaign, even though there were low numbers in various states.
That's right.
You don't have that anymore because people are tapped out. There's donor fatigue. You're not going to get the $10 and $20 donors for a whole bunch of candidates that are underperforming. So it's really going to come down to the people that can continue to convince high-end donors to donate to the PACs and their campaigns. And so that leaves, you know, what it looks like to me is Trump obviously doesn't need the money. You've got Cruz, who is raising money like crazy. Rubio's still raising money. I think Jeb's people are going to say, Jeb, you got to show me something, or we're going to go to Marco or Kasich.
Exactly.
So, you know, and then that will sort itself out.
Is somebody like Trump with his billions being able to fuel his own campaign, is that having an impetus on the donors for these other candidates? My point being that saying to not only Jeb, Rubio, even Cruz, even though Cruz and Rubio are raising money, is it because, are they working so hard to raise the money because of this Trump juggernaut? They're trying to raise and keep up with him? Is that what they're trying to do? Or is it just standard politics as usual?
I think it's standard, but I think they fear Trump. They look at his numbers and they're really afraid of him. And, you know, based on the numbers, they should be.
Do you see a schism in the Republican convention where even though, let's jump in a time machine and play devil's advocate here. Let's say it's September, October, Republican convention. Trump is the popular guy. He's won or come in second or third place in pretty much all the primaries. Do you see a split? You've got the majority of people who stand behind Trump, but yet you've got the establishment who's saying, oh no, we're going to do Rubio or we're going to do Cruz. And is that healthy?
I don't know what's going to happen at the convention, and you know, I'm not a professional predictor of these things, but I think it will sort itself out before the convention. That's just my sense. But
I think the same thing with Colonel Sanders and Hitler.
Colonel
Sanders and Hitler, the commie and the
There's
criminal.
a friend of mine did a meme.
The commie and the criminal. They should be a comic book.
It was
Dynamic
Colonel
duo.
Sanders and Bernie Sanders side by side, but Bernie was in the same outfit. And they said, how do you like your colonels, original or extra creepy? So you know, Bernie's terrific. You know what? I'm trying to get Bernie. You know what would help all these people, whoever wins on the Republican side, convince Bernie that the system is rigged. Millionaires and billionaires are giving.
And then we gotta pare down the corporations.
That's right.
And we've got to break them all up. If they're too big to fail.
Exactly. Convince them to run third party. That helps any idiot who
I
is
love
on the other side.
I love it's on YouTube, the bad lip syncing one.
Yes.
Cans and beans and a monkey on everyone's heads.
It's absolutely.
This is a picture of.
Oh man, it is funny.
I actually have been
But
going.
isn't it like that though? You
I've
watch
been going to Bernie's
you watch-
page.
You watch these debates and it's like, oh God, shut up.
Yeah.
All of them. Republicans too. Just
I know,
stop
it's-
speaking.
I-
Stop speaking.
honestly, this presidential primary can't end soon enough because I have friends that work for various presidential campaigns, and I see what they're saying to each other. And I'm wondering if they, you know, we're going to CPAC's coming up in March, and if we run into each other, how many are going to start beating the hell out of each other when they meet? But it's just, I have so many friends, and it's mainly the conservative wing, but I have people that are just saying nasty things to friends of years. I mean, they've been friends for decades.
Mm-hmm.
I blocked a friend just because he just said horrible things. And I was just punting. I was just doing the vermin supreme. But I just saw what he was saying to other people, and I'm just going, hey, take it easy, guys. You know, not only vermin supreme will end gingivitis. You gotta stop fighting now. Come on, Team Supreme with me.
This is true. The great thing, though, about John's postings about that is it's also funny and it's also tongue-in-cheek. And what John's talking about is that some people, and it's kind of the conversation we're having here, you've got these people out there that are just so vehement. They're pro-Trump or they're pro-Cruz or they're pro-this and anti-that, and they trumpet this. They stand on this soapbox, bringing me back to what I was saying about what happens in November when your candidate doesn't make it. You're going to end up staying home. You're going to end up blowing the election the other way. But this is how visceral it is. But it's nothing new. I had said a moment ago about study your American history. Every single damn campaign since the ink was dry in the Constitution has been knocked down. I mean, people have had pulled out guns and shot at each other.
Well,
sometimes.
one of the nice things about the conservative side is we're not all just sheep thinking the same thing. So we have differences of opinions. What would be nice is if it's a healthy thing. We have healthy debate, but then when you translate all that, in real life, it's much easier. Mm-hmm. But when you go online and you get the laptop warriors, and they are unfiltered sometimes. Mm-hmm. And they say the nastiest things to each other, to people who probably agree with them on 99% of everything, except the candidate. You know, and they're not helping their candidate, because if that one drops out, where their supporters going to go? To the people that insulted them, or to the people that were respectful to them? And I mentioned that, you know, one of the primary. The example is the primary between Earl Shawley and Sean Belot in 2010. Some of my best friends now, especially online friends, were my biggest opponents because they liked Earl over Sean. Yeah. And I treated them with I argued with them online, but I did so respectfully. When they were saying things that were false about Sean, I would say, no, that's actually false. And here's why, and here's the proof. But you know, have a good day.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to some people, right?
But we, you know, I don't know anyone from the Shawley campaign, even though there were bitter arguments with other people. I don't have any enemies from them. I mean, and they also know I'm conservative, and they were saying that Earl was more conservative than Sean, even though Sean was straight up and down conservative. But I don't know. I didn't get that. But the point that, you know, Rick Perry came out and endorsed Cruz. Now, I knew a Perry supporter that said the worst things possible. If you don't like Rick Perry, you're an idiot. Rick Perry's wonderful. Everybody's an idiot who doesn't like Rick Perry, right? And she hated Cruz. And she just slammed Cruz every day, slammed Cruz, and then slammed all the other candidates. And then Perry drops out, and then Perry, her idol, her god, endorses Cruz. And I thought she was going to commit suicide online, you know. What do I do now? And so she went to Rubio, who she was also insulting while she was. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get any of it. I'm staying out of it. You know, free ponies for all. I have my starter boot.
There you go. Really?
Well,
Say Supreme on it?
No, I'll show you the picture later. I put a boot on my head at home and looked up.
I think somebody like Vermin Supreme, and you always get these people all the time in almost every election, as much as we laugh at them and make fun of them, and John likes to use them tongue in cheek, I actually think it's telling about just how crazy and circus-like the election cycle can become. That somebody like a Vermin Supreme could actually put their name on the ballot, maybe get some money to show up at these places and get airtime.
When you think of it, he finished 4th in New Hampshire on the Democratic side.
That's insane.
And O'Malley dropped out. So he's actually in 3rd place from New Hampshire.
Well, Sanders trounced Clinton. Clinton stole the delegates. We'll get into that in a second. And O'Malley came in 3rd and then dropped out. Supreme was right behind him.
That's right. So if Hillary gets indicted and Bernie wanders off, you know, off the campaign
in
trail,
an Alzheimer's fit somewhere.
it's like, where is he's looking to buy a new pair of underwear. He's only got 2 pairs. He needs another pair of Karl Marx. Yeah, definitely.
Kmart.
400 Oak Street, Cincinnati, Ohio. Definitely. Yeah. But you know, you gotta get. How do you get Rain Man and Bernie in at the same? But Cameron sucks. Bernie sucks. But you know.
How crazy though is this country gone?
It's an
that
insane.
Somebody like a Bernie Sanders garners as much support on the left as somebody like Trump does on the right. How crazy is that?
People are tired of the establishment running their lives. Bernie, do your Bernie. It's telling because I think a lot of people on both sides don't feel that their interests are being served. They think it's all about these politicians helping themselves, not helping anybody else, and not
crazy enough. So somebody like Bernie Sanders has been in the Senate for from forever, basically.
He never had a job, really, right?
Never had a job except
That but
typical communist. Reminds me of a guy, long hair, beard. Yeah, lived back in the 1900s.
Karl Rove? No, Marx.
A big guy with big hair, whatever. I forget his name.
Yeah, it's scary. It's very scary.
Funny how it keeps repeating.
It does, because you got regular people living their lives, and they see attack ads, and then they see online fighting, and they just want to go about their lives. And geez, it ages you. If you look at tweets and Facebook posts all day, you
go
just
crazy. Part of my show, I have to follow what's online. I have to follow the trends.
And I do too.
And I've got news for you. I started this radio thing in 2008. It's 8 years. It's 2016 now. I feel it because I have to pay so much attention to so much stuff. I've got guests coming on. I've constantly got to work the guests. That's my marketing. And so then when I have to get the guests, I've got to find out what's going on, stay current with some trends, so that when I have a conversation with the guests, I at least sound like somewhat like I know what I'm talking about to keep the conversation going. But it does. It really grinds on you after a while.
And when it's the same arguments for every cycle, it's the same argument. I mean, the Trump phenomenon threw other arguments in and new people in, I think, to the argument who haven't heard the same arguments for cycle after cycle. So you just sit there and shake your head because it's you see a Facebook post, someone says something, and you just look at it and say, oh, this isn't going to end well. And then all of a sudden you see the comments going. 10,000 comments that ends up in...
But do they depend on new people coming in all the time into each election cycle? What Pat Humphreys from the Greater Boston Tea Party said to me once, not just the ill-informed voter, but the mal-informed.
Yeah, you get a lot of
badly informed.
New people to cycle, or people that are only looking at one source and that source probably isn't that credible, but
Yeah,
they're,
but doesn't that drive it though? That keeps driving each election cycle?
yeah,
Rather
I
than
mean,
people
it's,
like you and me who have seen a few and we know what's going on, we know the bullshit when we see it.
it's tough to tell now, which is, it's tough to tell which site is satire now. I mean, you have an administration that uses The Onion as a think tank, apparently, and it's just insane. People post these those sites like Daily Current and the sites that are fake.
Right.
And they post something and then it gets shared everywhere because people
Thinking it's
believe it.
true.
And it's absurd, but you're not really sure. I mean, mainly from a policy standpoint.
Onion News Network, Newsbusters is another one that they do a lot of satire stuff, but they do it so good that you think, wait a minute, is that? And it's like, wait a minute, I gotta go and look this up.
But even the absurd ones, you're not sure. You're not sure anymore. So people share that, and you just shake. That's a fake website. That's not real. Well, how do you know? This could probably true. And then the next conspiracy theory, and the conspiracy theories seem to make sense too logically, based on the characters we're dealing with in DC, and it's tough.
I don't know if it's manufacturing of evidence too, but just the amount of evidence that even conspiracy theory that makes somebody like myself, who's not a conspiracist, actually say, okay, wait a minute, what did he just say? Wait a second, wait, what is that?
Who sleeps with the pillow on top of their head? Wait a minute. That's, I mean, too soon?
Is that too soon?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I mean, but that's what people, half my timeline is people saying Scalia was killed.
Right.
And the Scalia family is saying, no, he wasn't.
Right.
Sick,
and even I thought, when I read some of the early reports, I was like, this is too, I smell a rat here. But that's all I was saying. I was like, you know what, I smell a rat. Opinion subject to change based on information.
But back in the good old days when you turn on local TV and you'd have Liz and Jack, and you really wouldn't have too many other stations and no internet, and the kids would go out and play baseball all day and nobody would be online yelling at each other. It was a simpler time. We probably didn't know what was going on. I bet you all this dirty background political garbage was going on then and decades before that, but we just hear about it over and over again. So I think a lot of people who watch their timelines, who aren't political junkies or political consultants or anybody who's an activist, they're looking at their timeline saying, this world is going crazy, I'm going to go do something else that doesn't give me a headache. And a lot of those people stay home.
There are days, believe me. There are days.
For me, it's only days that end in Y. That's it.
So what's next?
Those people are driving me crazy.
So what are you working on right now? What's next for you? I mean, the election cycle is here, and it's live and in Technicolor. What's going on with you right now?
Right now with the company, we have the two Ohio clients for Congress.
Matt Lynch and
we've got a primary on, the early voting's already started in Ohio, and the primary's on the 15th of March. So hopefully we'll have 2 wins with that, but we're in conversations with a whole bunch of other congressional candidates who are looking to take down incumbents.
Excellent.
We have a whole bunch of stuff.
Put my foot in your door. Send these people my email address. Send my information.
I will. As soon as
because we've been doing this since 10. And we've got Skype, we've got phone lines, we can do it either live on the show, do a pre-tape, a digital campaign.
No, I appreciate the offer. I'll send them all your way. I keep telling people it doesn't matter where the show is.
We've been doing people from Oregon, Nevada, all over the place. Because it really is, even though politics is local, if some congressman or a local senator, somebody gets up into Washington, even in their state house, and they make a decision, they cast a vote, it's like a pebble in a pond. It has a ripple effect all across the nation. So this is why I like to talk to these people all across the nation. And what happens in Oregon is going to affect Massachusetts and Florida and Arizona. It's going to affect everybody.
It was funny you mentioned Oregon. The first radio interview Brad and I ever did was on an Oregon radio station.
Really?
Because someone was posting, a friend of mine from Oregon was posting, I said, I'm from Massachusetts, I feel your pain, talking about the single party rule.
Yes,
and that happened to be our first tag team radio interview.
Good for you.
But the stuff you hear people complaining about Massachusetts and issues with the party and issues with the people in power want to stay in power. Guess what? That's the same everywhere. And so I tend not to like want to pick fights when I don't need to with people by saying, oh, you're doing this and you're nasty and you're. I tend not to name names and try to change the process and try to get people, old school Dems like my parents, get them at least engaged in one issue locally that matters to them. Have them read one bill, because if they read one bill, whoever wrote it, it's a pile of junk, it's huge, it's ridiculous. It'll get them mad, it'll get them involved. And my mom was in the real estate business, and she said there was a rental registration bill in Boston that it really ticked her off. She hadn't seen it, but I said, have you seen this? She's like, oh my God, they have nothing to do but this, really? And she got on the phone and started calling the counselors and saying, no, this is stupid and here's why. And they changed it. So regular people, whether you're part of a quote-unquote Tea Party group, part of a local meetup, Republican meetup, Tea Party groups, all sorts of entities out there. You don't even have to be in an entity. You can be an individual that makes a difference, and you can go out.
Get enough people to side with you.
And you get enough people involved in making an impact, and people see that you can affect change, then they're going to start listening to you more than if you just poke them in the eye every day, and that happens all the time.
Kind of like being a dry sponge and soaking everything up from the bottom till eventually, get ourselves everywhere.
That and success stories.
Yes.
People love success stories. They don't love, well, I yelled at him for 5 hours and he told me to go pound sand and nothing happened. They love, I worked my way, I did X, Y, and Z, this worked for me, you should try it. And this may help you. Give it a shot, let me know how it works, and maybe we can tweak it together. And then you start affecting change successfully, people are going to start paying, well, watch out for that guy.
Yes.
So it could be dangerous. I hope to be one of the most dangerous people to the GOP establishment ever, because I'd like to take their high-end donors and convince them to donate to good candidates.
Sure.
Boy, they would not like me if I did that.
It could shake up the system. It could completely change everything.
I'm gonna sell their high-end donors eventually.
Good.
On this is where your money should be going, not here. They won't like that.
Is this a calling for you, or is it something? What made you get into this? Is it something you love to do, politics you love to do, or is it old-fashioned? I love my country.
It's more the latter. I did a lot of jobs to make money.
Sure.
I did banking. I did real estate. None of them had any calling component to it. None of them were.
It was a job. It was a business.
It was like you collect the money, you go back to work, you collect the money, and it's like, and after a while, I think about 8 years in banking, mortgages and business banking, probably about, 5 or 6 years where I was doing business consulting, helping businesses grow. That had an element. I actually liked that, and because I actually saw results when people,
tangible things you could look at.
And I had success stories, and I had people thanking me and saying, "Oh my God, a 1-hour meeting just had me think a little bit different model." Google wasn't always a search engine, right? So whoever convinced Google to switch from what they were doing to being a search engine should have got paid more than $100. But who knows? It might have been the owners, but. The point is I actually like that, being able to use whatever I've picked up over the years to help other people improve their businesses. And then I left banking and business consulting when I saw what was going to happen with the banks. They were giving money to people that couldn't possibly pay it back. This isn't going to end well, blah, blah. And I said, I gotta get involved in this Dodd-Frank, the whole Barney, Chris Dodd, CRA. I'm like, this is insane. This is going to hurt all of us, and I predicted it. So that's when I started getting more involved, and I got involved locally when Scott Brown first ran. I created the first 41st vote hashtag, and I worked a lot for free and as did thousands of people around the country to stop Obamacare.
And eventually, you just started your business.
Started the business, and then hooked up with Sean, and I won the award for Best GOP Social Media in 2010. So that helped us land Herman Cain, but my comedy on Twitter probably had more to do with that because I had been followed by so many people that were involved in Cain, and so was Brad, in fact. So, just because they knew us from online and we were kind of funny conservatives, which I created the unsustainable bar tab hashtag to brand myself.
I gotta see that.
Yeah, just hashtag unsustainable bar tab. If you type it into Twitter, you'll.
Yeah.
I haven't been using it as much, but CPAC actually sent us an iPad saying that was like the best hashtag ever.
Really?
Yeah, that Brad has the iPad now.
Unsustainable bar tab.
But part of that was interacting with all the bloggers at all the conferences and stuff, and so we got to be friendly with a lot of people. And I keep telling candidates, you can't just go ask for the order. You got to build some kind of rapport. This is sales 101 too.
Yes.
And I said, listen, it's the most important part of selling anything, is listening. So I said, you can't just say, hey, buy my stuff, which is like, give me money, give me money.
Yeah, that's okay on its end, but...
And you don't want to be like the guy at the party that just runs around and hands his business cards out to people, because he's an idiot and the cards get thrown away and you just wasted a ton of money. So build some rapport. We actually try to do that rapport building through technology, but also through engagement with the social media posts, responding to comments, responding to direct messages, not just blowing people up. But we get these candidates thinking a little bit about Sales 101 and thinking a little bit about, okay, how not to be the idiot at the party.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for this
interview.
This was great. Give your website, your business information, contact information.
Sure, it's fourtierstrategies.com, FOURTIER strategies.com. You can find me on Twitter at JS as in Sam L Consulting. That's my personal handle. If you want to see some of my personal tweets, John LaRosa on Facebook. My business partner is Brad Marston, at Brad Marston on Twitter, and you can find him on Facebook as well.
And when we post up the video and upload it, just look above the screen. We'll have it up there on the header when we do the publishing here. John LaRosa, thank you so much for this time.
Thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you.